Well, hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back. It is May 1st. I cannot believe it. It is the first day of May. April's over. So in this part of the world, April is still a little bit rainy, windy, cold, but May is where it really starts to feel a little bit more like summer. So very excited that it's May 1st. Unfortunately, we are still in the middle of this really crazy time where can't really run with other people, can't socialize very much. Just doing a lot of running by myself. I hope you guys are staying motivated through all of this. I'm trying to find ways to motivate myself to go out and run every day and get some workouts in and really try to visualize that I am building towards something, even though there's really nothing out there that I'm building towards. I'm still building like a season plan. And even though there's no races to work towards this year, building up your fitness this year, right now, during this time is really gonna help you in the future. The reason why is because we are constantly changing as runners. We're not the same runners that we were last year, and we're not gonna be the same. We're not the same runners now that we're gonna be next year. And so in order to make sure that we are ready for when races open up, we need to at least stay in maintenance mode. And if you have the opportunity, if you're staying safe and you're in a place where it has relatively low risk, like I kind of am right now, I'm still able to run outside. I'm still able to kind of do some hard workouts and I can build my fitness. If you're able to keep up with that, you're going to be really happy later when all of a sudden you can start signing up for races again. One of the ways that I'm staying motivated is actually putting workouts on my calendar. And so today I have an interval session. We're going to do a little bit of VO2 max work. And it is beautiful outside. This looks like it's an amazing day. It's 58 degrees right now, but the sun is shining and it says the wind speed is only 3 miles an hour, which is probably the least amount of wind I've had for a run in a month. So I'm going to show you my process for how I build a workout in Training Peaks and then how I get it to my Apple Watch to give me in-run cues to help me stay on track and make it so that I don't even really have to think about stuff when I'm out there. I'm also going to be testing the Polar Grit X run power compared to Stryd. And the reason why I'm using power for these workouts is because I'm not going to be on a track. So I'm not really going to be relying on my times or speed or anything like that. I'm definitely not going to be relying on heart rate because these intervals are going to be short, like 3 minutes. And so my heart rate is barely even going to have time to catch up by the end of the interval. But power is a really great way to build your workout and make sure you're getting the right amount of effort for each interval. So that being said, let's check out Training Peaks and I'll show you how I build a workout. All right, so I'm in my Training Peaks right now. I'm going to click on a new workout and we're going to make this a run. This run we're going to title VO2 max intervals. I'm not going to type in anything for duration or distance yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this build workout and we're going to choose how you like to build this workout. We're going to do duration and we're going to do a percent of functional threshold power. Range is good. So I'm going to hit continue. Now I've got the workout screen open. I can go in here. I'm going to select warm up, drag it down, and 20-minute warm up sounds good. Percentage of FTP, we're going to go for 252 to 288, so that's a pretty good, nice little warm up. And then we can do 2-step repeats, 3-step repeats. There's all these different options in here. I'm going to add the 2-step repeat. I'm going to put it in here. And it already gives you some targets for what you want. Hard is going to be 100% to 115% of FTP. And then the easy is going to be, we're going to make that even easier so that it's more of just like a jog. Also, the other thing I want to do is I want to go in here and I want to change this to 3 minutes and this to 1.5 minutes. So I'm going to repeat it 4 times. It's going to be great. I'm going to add a recovery section, and I'm going to put it in here. Now let's put it in here for 5 minutes because I think that'll get me about somewhere around 5 miles. I've got the title in here. It's estimated it's going to take me 43 minutes. It's going to give me 56 TSS points because there's a lot of short intensity work happening, but not a high quantity of work actually happening during this workout. It also gives me workout details right here, but I don't really need to remember any of this because we're going to get it on my Apple Watch. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into the Apple Watch and we're going to click on the Stryd app. We're going to click on workout and it's fetching the workout. So this is the one that we just created. It's got 10 intervals And if you click on it, it's going to give you the options to start. It also tells you exactly what is involved in this workout. First, we've got our warm-up, 20 minutes, and then we've got our run. It says 4 times, 3 minutes, minute and a half, and then the rest. And then all you gotta do is hit start, but I'm not gonna do that yet. I'm gonna wait until we get outside. Also going to wear the Torin plush today. They've had 2 days of rest, so they should be nice and bouncy today. Also gonna be wearing the Polar H10 chest strap, and also Jaybird Vista headphones, listening to music, because that will help with these intervals. All right, let's go. So I've been averaging about a 8-minute pace. I've got 2 minutes left before I start my VO2 max interval. Average power has been 272 watts. On the Polar, I'm not even paying attention to it. I'm just using the Polar to record a second set of data so that we can compare afterwards. But my whole workout is based off of the Apple Watch and the Stryd right now. All right, so we're 20 minutes into our run right now, and here's the screen. 3, 2, 1. Repeat 1 of 4. Okay, 3 minutes. Let's go. Woo. Turn around. Minute and a half of recovery right now. 10 seconds left of recovery. Yeah, it's go time. Okay, well, that was awesome. Having the intervals right here on this watch, giving me like an audio prompt of when to start, when to stop. Having the countdown timer, oh my gosh, it was really awesome. I was also recording my heart rate straight to the heart rate strap, and now I'm saving that and it's downloading the exercise. So here's what the Polar H10 recorded. Once again, it's just the lunch hour, and I don't have a ton of time, so I gotta get, oh, there's sweat in my eyes. Oh. But yeah, it's the lunch hour. I don't have a whole lot of time, so I gotta get cleaned up, back to work, and I will check in soon. Bye. All right, so I'm back. It's actually Sunday afternoon right now, but we're gonna take a quick look at the data for my run from Friday. We're gonna look at power, obviously, but then I definitely wanna look at heart rate across the 3 devices. Remember, we had the Polar H10, we had the Polar Grit X, and we had the Apple Watch. And then I wanna look at cadence, I wanna look at pace, I wanna look at all the data to see how it really compares. So, as normal, we're gonna drop our files in to DC Rainmaker's site, and we're gonna create this analysis file. So, okay, here we go. This is it. First, we're gonna look at power, because that is what probably most people are here to see. Okay, so the red line is the Polar Grit X, blue line is the Stryd Pod. Remember, the Stryd is pretty much the industry standard as far as power goes, and we're gonna take a look at this warm-up section first. So let's zoom in on that. So the Stryd is hovering right around like 290, and the Polar is hitting really close to like 350. So about 60 watts difference. But again, if we could get this to calibrate somehow, like if I could go into Polar and just calibrate down to Stryd, that would be amazing. But I don't know of a way to do that at this point. So right here, took a little walk break to film my wrist, which you guys saw. So then jumping back into it, the rest of this warm up, both of them were trending really, really close. Let's get out of this. All right, so we're looking at this pickup right here at the beginning of this first interval, and arguably these reacted almost in the same time frame. This is each of these grid lines is 2 seconds. So we're looking at, over the course of 4 seconds, these both hit pretty much the start of the run interval, got up to power right away. So that's really impressive. I didn't know exactly what to expect, but I expected Stryd to respond a little bit faster than Polar. Seem to have both responded nearly identically. Let's look at this whole interval. For argument's sake, we're just going to say that Stryd is accurate right here because it's basically the best we have. I mean, the United States Olympic Triathlon team uses Stryd to measure all of their workouts, so we're just going to go with that, and we're going to assume that Stryd is accurate here, and we're going to see how Polar compares to it. So right off the bat, you see Polar, we'll just call it estimated high here, and that's probably because maybe my pickup of arm swing was a little bit harder than obviously measuring from the foot. And then aside from this little section right here, I pretty much stayed within about 20 watts on the Stryd. The Polar is going from 486 was the high point, 376. It's a pretty wide fluctuation of close to 100 watts throughout this whole interval. That'll be quite a bit harder to target workouts if your power is jumping that much. And you can just see, even when we're zoomed out, it's a lot easier to see that the difference between the top and the bottom of Stryd is much different than the top and the bottom of Polar for this first interval. So right off the bat, we're going to see that Polar its estimation is going to be just a little bit harder to really structure your workout off of. And then we're going to take a look at this section right here. So this is a section where I was obviously kind of lost concentration for a second. Stryd, if I'd been paying attention to Stryd, it would have showed me that I was dipping too far down, 292 watts. Polar would not have been giving me that feedback, and Polar actually dipped its power when I picked up to get back up to the speed I was supposed to be running at. Stryd, so you see this pickup right here, 340 watts. That's pretty good feedback over the course of about 7 seconds to show, okay, I'm down, now I'm back up. So this is one thing that I really wanted to see, and it's showing me that when I picked up my pace and I bumped up my watts by 50 watts on the Stryd, it reacted within 7 seconds. Polar, it took about 14 seconds to respond. So twice as long, and that's quite a bit when you're doing these high intensity workouts like this. So interval number 2, I remember this, I had to do a turnaround because I got to the end of this path. Here's the turnaround point right here. Let's take a look at that right here where I start to slow down and then get back up to like max speed here. So this really makes a whole lot of sense right here. This turnaround point where I did this turnaround is pretty much like, so if you're in like a triathlon or a road race or something and you're coming to the end of a turnaround and you got to go around a cone, the diameter of this turn was probably about like 6 feet. It was a pretty tight turn, but I didn't really slow down that much. Like I took this turn really pretty much as hard as I could. Stryd gave me that feedback, about a 70 watt decrease. Polar showed me it actually responded late, so it took me pretty high into the turn. Nearly 200 watts decrease on this turnaround where I slowed down a little bit, but not 200 watts worth of slowdown. And then jumping back up, the big takeaway here that really shows the difference between these two power meters is that Stryd is taking the accelerometer movement from your foot, so it's getting a much more accurate pace and speed, whereas the Polar Grit is on your wrist. It's not getting as accurate of a pace. It's probably, my guess is it's probably pulling some of your pace from GPS, and so this turnaround point where on GPS I'm within like this 6 to 12 foot circle. GPS looked like I was standing still. That's why I'm guessing that's why I dropped down 200 watts. Whereas the Stryd, it was not taking any of my GPS readings into account. And so it knew that I was continuing on this tight turn and knew that I was still pushing through this 180 degree turn. So the Polar Grit thinks that I came to almost a complete stop and then all of a sudden started jumping forward again. Whereas obviously that wasn't the case because this was just a U-turn. This is really, really interesting right here, at least to me. I hope you guys like it too. Again, we have to remember that these are both estimations, but they're based on readings from different places in the body. And the Stryd, again, is trusted by a whole lot of people, and it has been for years. We're going to just assume that Stryd is mostly right in this situation when we're looking at this. All right, so that's power. Let's look at heart rate. Okay, so heart rate, we actually have 3 sensors going at the same time here. As we're looking at these, the blue is actually, it says Stryd on here, but it's actually the Apple Watch, heart rate reading. The purple is the Polar H10 and the red is the Polar Grit. The Apple Watch is taking less readings. You can see here at the beginning, Polar Grit is showing some interesting things here. Some variation here. There's some spikes high, some spikes low. Apple Watch was really consistent except for this spot right here. That was coming up to the turnaround spot. So a lot of these wrist-based sensors are really, really good until you get up to about 155 beats per minute. But this up here, like especially this first interval, like when I'm up here, like 176, the H10 said the highest I got was 176, Apple Watch 178. I mean, 2 beats per minute is really, really close either way. So both of these wrist-based sensors did really awesome. And this was, I had them both just in the normal spot. It was in direct sunlight, as you remember from the video. So really, really good. So cadence, we're pulling from the Stryd Pod, and we're gonna be pulling from the Polar Grit. Right after the first interval, this is a really good example. Stryd cadence dropped down to 58 steps per minute, and I did start walking for about 3 seconds. I took a few steps right after that first interval. Polar Grit didn't pick that up. It dropped my cadence from 91 down to 82 and then back up to my jog right here. So that was interesting. Obviously, Stryd Pod connected to the foot is gonna pick that up. Polar Grit missed it. Not a big deal though. It was only for like 2 seconds. Distance. This is the one. So distance, this is one where I was a little bit surprised. Polar Grit was about a whole 1/10 of a mile longer than the Stryd. At the end of 5 miles, to be off by a 1/10 of a mile, that's quite a bit. We're talking at the end of a marathon, it's going to show you 26.2 miles, a whole half mile early. You know, at the end of 100, that's going to be off by 2 miles. So that's something that's, you know, kind of concerning. Again, Stryd is taking the actual distance that the Stryd Pod moves. Very, very accurate. Polar Grit is pulling off GPS. So there's its differences there. Overall, my thoughts on these two devices is that I'm honestly kind of torn. I've been using Stryd for a long time to base all of my training off of. It's helped me build this whole season as I've been training and leading up to what was supposed to be my first 100 of the year. And so all of my data is based off of the Stryd calibrated power numbers that I'm getting. But the Polar Grit is actually really, really good. And it's easy because you just have to have one device. You don't have to have anything clipped to your foot. The only problem I would have with it is, as we've seen here, it does lag a little bit behind Stryd, and it has some weird numbers, especially since it's obviously part of it is based on GPS. The thing with the Stryd Pod is just that the numbers that you're seeing, they're just, like, you can trust them. Like, it's a really, really great piece of gear. Some of the best athletes in the world use Stryd Pod, but the Polar Grit is night and day better than something like the Coros Pod, which doesn't even give you data that is usable. Still though, for my training, I'm probably going to be relying on the Stryd Pod, and I'll probably be adjusting my FTP back and using that. I'll probably end up connecting the Stryd Pod to my Polar Grit so that I'm just getting the same numbers with every watch that I use. If I could calibrate this down about 60 watts or so, I would feel okay with using this for a lot of my daily runs. But for the highest accuracy, for power, for cadence, for any of your other measurements, like if you're trying to do stride length, also for distance, you really want to rely on something like the Stryd Pod. But Polar Grit is showing a lot of promise, and I think there's a lot of ways that they could improve it to make it even better, especially if they gave us the ability to calibrate it. All right, so that's it. The second half of this video, the analysis part, was kind of long-winded, so sorry if you guys hate that stuff. That's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have specific questions about the Polar Grit X or the Stryd Pod or Apple Watch or anything that I've been testing, leave a comment down below with your question, and maybe I'll make a whole video off of your comment. So with that said, thank you so much, and I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.